guys, hi. Oh, hello. I broke my streak. And I've been trying to force myself back into the loop of making ASMR videos because I really enjoy it, but it doesn't matter how much I enjoy something. If I get out of the habit, like if I break my streaks, I'll never get back into it. Like, I love drawing. I haven't drawn for 2 years. I think about drawing a lot. I don't draw. Yeah, I think about playing video games. I think about playing certain video games. I don't play them. Because, like, what's it called? I want to play Red Dead Redemption, like the first one, I think. I played half of the game and I was really super on top of it. I want to finish the entire thing. And I stopped playing for 1 day and I haven't played since. It's been a year. I'm probably not gonna, I'm not gonna finish the game ever. Anyways, what was I gonna say? I filmed this video 2 days ago. Or a day ago, I think. Not yesterday, the day before yesterday. I filmed it and it was an hour long. And guess what? My mic wasn't connected. So I gave up. Yesterday I just gave up. I went to sleep. Also, I've completely ruined my sleep schedule. Like, absolutely, completely, like really bad at going to sleep. I used to like go to sleep at like 4 in the morning ish. And then I fixed my sleep schedule to log in for school. And now that we don't have any school left, I can't log in. I need to find a reason to stay on top of the game, bro. I need to find a reason, but there's no reason, and I love staying up late, but nobody stays up late, and then I want to play Minecraft, and then nobody can play Minecraft with me. Yeah, I've just been playing Minecraft literally the last like 3 days. Actually, no, like 4 days. I think the only thing I've been doing is playing Minecraft. Yeah, it's good though. It's good. It's fun. It's good. Back to this. Book 3. Okay. Let's hope that my microphone is connected. Hold on, let's see. I swear to God, fingers crossed. Let's hope this shit is connected. Oh my God, if it's not, I'm actually gonna crash out. I'm actually gonna start crashing out. And then I'll just end the series completely. Okay. Book 3. The Argument. Telemachus, and heaven's wise dame that never husband had, now came to Nestor, who is either guest received at the religious feast he made to Neptune on his shore, and there told was what was done before the Trojan turrets and the state of all the Greeks since Ilium's fate. This book these 3 of the greatest place doth serve with many a varied grace, which past Minerva takes her leave, whose state when Nestor doth perceive, with sacrificing makes it shown, where many a blazing bright is shown. Oh no, oops. Wait, hold on. Whose state when Nestor doth perceive, with sacrificing makes it known, where many a blazing right is shown. Which done, Telemachus hath gained a chariot of him who ordained Pisistratus his son, his guide, to Sparta, when starry-eyed the ample heaven began to be. All house rights doth forth them free, and fairest Diocles did please, her surname, Orthodox. Another argument. Ulysses' son with Nestor lies, to Sparta gone, thence Pallas flies. It's basically a TLDR of a TLDR. The second argument. That's so silly. face bashful brow, to embolden which this act is put on thee, to seek thy father both on shore and sea, and learn in what climate he abides so close, or in the power of what fate doth repose. Come then, go right to Nestor, let us see if in his bosom any counsel be that may inform us. Pray him not to trace the common courtship and to speak in grace of the demanders, but to tell the truth, which will delight him and commend thy youth for such prevention, for he loves no lies, nor will report them being truly wise. He answered, Mentor, now how, alas, shall I present myself? How great is gravity! My youth by no means that ripe form affords that can digest my mind's instinct in words, wise and beseeming the ears of one so sage. Youth of most hope blush to use words with age. She said, Thy mind will some conceit impress, and something God will prompt thy towardness, for I suppose thy birth and breeding too were not in spite of what the gods could do. I feel like I have to burp. Good Lord, okay. This said, she swiftly went before, and he her step made guides and followed instantly. When soon they reached the Pylian throngs and seats, where Nestor with his sons sat and the meats that for the feast served round about them were adherents dressing all the sacred cheer, being roast and boiled meats. When the Pylians saw these strangers come, in thrust did all men draw. About their entry took their hands and prayed. They both would sit, their entry first essayed by Nestor's son Pisistratus, in grace of whose repair he gave them honored place betwixt his sire and brother Thrasymed, who sat at feast on soft fells that were spread along the sea sands carved and reached them part of the inwards, and did make a steam of sprightly wine into a golden bowl, which to Minerva with a gentle soul he gave, and thus spake, Ere you eat, fair guest, invoke the seas, king of whose sacred feast your travel hither makes you partners now. When sacrificing as becomes, bestow this bowl of sweet wine on your friend, that he may likewise use these rites of piety, for I suppose his youth doth pray use, since all men need the gods. But you I choose first in this cup's disposure, since his years seem short of yours, more like me appears. Thus gave he her the cup of pleasant wine, and since a wise and just man did design the golden bowl first to her for free receipt, even to the goddess it did add delight, who thus invoked, Hear thou, whose vast embrace spheres the whole earth, nor disdain thy grace, to us that ask it in performing this, to Nestor first, and these fair sons of his, vouchsafe all honor, and then next them bestow on all these Pylians that have offered now this most renowned hecatomb to thee, remuneration fit for them and free, and lastly deign Telemachus and me, the work performed for whose effect we came, our safe return both with our ship and fame. Thus prayed she, and herself obeyed, and in the end performing all for which she prayed. And now to pray and do as she had done, she gave the fair round bowl to Ulysses' son. The meat then dressed and drawn and served each guest, they celebrated a most sumptuous feast. When appetite to wine and food allayed, horse-taming Nestor then began and said, Now life's desires served as far as fare, time fits me to inquire what guests these are. Fair guests, what are ye, and for what coast tries your ship the moist deeps for fit merchandise? whose seat is situate where Aeneas the renowned mountain rears, his haughty forehead and the honor bears to be our sea mark, we essayed the waves. The business I must tell our own good graves, and not the public. I am come to inquire if in the fame that best men doth inspire of my most suffering father, I may hear some truth of his estate now who did bear the name being joined in fight with you alone. To even with earth the height of Ilion, of all men else that any name did bear, and fought for Troy the several ends we hear, but his death Jove keeps from the world unknown, the certain fame thereof being told by none, if on the continent by enemies slain, or with the waves eat of the ravenous main. For his love 'tis that your knees I sue, that you would please out of your own clear view to assure his sad end, or say if your ear hath heard of the unhappy wanderer, to too much sorrow whom his mother bore. You then by all your bounties I implore, if ever to you deed or word hath stood, by my father good father promised. For my good father promised to render good amongst the Trojans, where ye both have tried the Grecian sufferance, that in naught applied to my respect or pity you will close, but unclothed truth to my desires disclose. Oh, my much loved, said he, since you renew remembrance of the miseries that grew upon our still in strength opposing Greece, amongst Troy's people I must touch a piece of all our foes, either in the men Achilles brought by sea and led to gain about the country, or in us that fought about the city where to death were brought all our chief men, as many as were there. There Mars like Ajax lies, Achilles there in the council like the gods his friend, there my dear son Antilochus took end, past measure swift of foot and stayed in fight. A number more that ills felt infinite, of which to reckon all what mortal man, if 5 or 6 years you should stay here, can serve such inquiry you would back again, affected with unsufferable pain, before you heard it. 9 years sieged we them, with all the depths and sleight of stratagem that could be thought, all knit to ill past end. Yet still they toiled us, nor would yet Jove send rest to our labors, nor will scarcely yet. But no man lived that would in public set his wisdom to Ulysses' policy, as though his equal so excessively he stood superior always. If you be his son indeed, mine eyes even ravish me to admiration, and in all consent your speech puts on a speech's ornament. Nor would one say that one so young could use, unless his son a rhetoric so profuse. And while we lived together, he and I never in speech maintained diversity, nor sat in council, but one soul led, with spirit and prudent counsel furnished, the Greeks at all hours, that with fairest course, what best became them, they might put in force. But when Troy's high towers we had leveled thus, we put to sea and God divided us. And then did Jove our sad retreat devise, for all the Greeks were neither just nor wise, and therefore many felt so sharp a fate, sent from Minerva's most pernicious hate, whose mighty father can do fearful things, by whose help she betwixt the brother kings let fall contention, who in council met in vain and timeless, when the sun was set, and all the Greeks called the king charged with wine. Yet then the kings would utter their design, and why they summoned Menelaus he, but all in mind of home, and cried to sea. But Agamemnon stood on contraries, who will will was they should stay and sacrifice. While Hecatombs to palace to forego her right wrath to them. Fool that did not know she would not so be won, for not with ease the eternal gods are turned from what they please. So they divided on foul language stood. The Greeks in huge rout rose, their wine heat blood, 2 ways affecting, and that night sleeps too. We turned to studying each other's woe, when Jove besides made ready foes and no. Morn came, we launched, and in our ships did stow our goods and the fair girt women, half our men, the people's guide, Atreides did contain, and half being now aboard put forth to sea. A most free gale gave all ships prosperous way. God settled on the huge whale-bearing lake, and Sinidos we reached, where for time's sake we did divine rites to the gods. But Jove, inexorable still, bore yet no love to our return, but did again excite a second sad contention that turned quite a great part of us back to sea again, which were the abundant in all counsel man, your matchless father, who to gratify the great Atreides back to him did fly. But I fled with all that followed me, because I knew God studied misery to hurl amongst us. With me likewise fled martial tides. I, the men he led, gat to go with him. Wind our fleet did bring to Lesbos, where the yellow-headed king thought, though late, yet found us, as we put to choice, a tedious voyage if we sail should hoist. Above rough Chias left on our left hand, to the Isle of Syria, or the rugged land, sail under, and for windy I must steer. We asked of God that some ocean might clear our cloudy business, who gave a sign, and charged that all should in a middle line the sea cut for Euboea, that with speed our long sustained infortunate might be freed. Then did a whistling wind begin to rise, and swiftly flew we through the fishy skies, till to Geristus we in night were brought, where through the broad sea since we safe had brought at Neptune's altar many solid thighs of the slaughtered bulls we burned for sacrifice. The 4th day came, when Tydeus' son did greet the haven of Argos with a complete fleet. But I for Pylos straight steered on my course, nor ever left the wind his foreright force, since God foresent it first. And thus I came, dear son to Pylos, uninformed by fame, nor no one saved by fate or overcome, whom I have heard of since, set here at home, as fits thou shalt be taught, not left unshown. The expert spearmen, every mere maiden, led by the brave air of the mighty souled, unpeered Achilles safe of home got hold, safe Philoxenes' famous seed, and safe Idomeneus as men led to his home, greets he who fled the armed field, of whom yet none the sea from him withheld. Atreides, you have both heard, though ye bear his far off dwellers, what an end had he, done by Aegisthus to a bitter death, who miserably paid for forced breath, Atreides leaving a good son that died, in blood of that deceitful parricide, his wreckful sword. And thou, my friend, as he for this hath his fame, the like spirit in thee assume at all parts. Fair and great as he, thou art in all hope, make this performance that my injury done by my mother's wooers being so foul, I might revenge upon their every soul, who pressing me with contumely stare, such things as past the powers of utterance are. But heaven's powers have graced my destiny with no such honor. Both my sire and I are born to suffer everlastingly. Because you named those wooers, friend, said he. Report says many such in despite of thee, wooing thy mother in thy house commit the ills thou namest, but say, proceedeth it from will in thee to bear so foul a foil, or from thy subjects' hate that wish thy spoil, and will not aid thee, since the spirits rely against thy rule on some grave augury? What know they, but at length thy father may come, and with violence their violence pay, or he alone, or all the Greeks with him? But if Minerva now did so esteem thee as thy father in times past, whom past all measure she with glorious favors graced amongst the Trojans where we suffered so, oh, I did never see in such clear show the gods so grace a man as she to him, to all her eyes appeared in all her trim. If so, I say she would be pleased to love, and that her mind's care thou so much couldst move, as did thy father every man of these, would lose in death their seeking marriages. O father, answered he, you make amaze seize me throughout, beyond the height of phrase. You raise expression, but will never be that I shall move in any deity so blessed an honor, not by any means. If hope should prompt me, or blind confidence, the god of fools, or every deity should will it, for 'tis past my destiny. The burning-eyed dame answered, what a speech hath passed the teeth guard and nature gave to teach. Fit question of thy words before they fly. God easily can, when to a mortal eye he's furthest off, a mortal satisfy, and does the more still. For the cared for sire, I rather wish that I might home retire, after my sufferance of a world of woes, far off, and then my glad eyes might disclose the day of my return, then straight retire, and perish standing by my household fire, as Agamemnon did, that lost his life by false Aegisthus and his falser wife. For death to come at length, 'tis due to all, nor can the gods themselves, when fate shall call their most beloved man, extend his vital breath beyond the fixed bounds of abhorrent death. Mentor, said he, let's dwell no more on this, although in us the sorrow pious is. No such return as we wish fates bequeath, my erring father, whom a present death the deathless have decreed. I'll now use speech that tends to other purposes and beseech instructions of grave Nestor, since he flows past shore in all experience and knows the sleights of wisdom to whose heights aspire others, well as my commended sire, whom fame reports to have commanded 3 ages of men, and doth incite to me show like the immortals. Nestor, the renown of old Aeneas, make the clear truth known, how the most great in empire Atreus' son sustained the act of his destruction. Where then was Menelaus? How was it that false Aegisthus, being so far unfit a match for him, could his death so enforce? Was he not then in Argos, or his course with men so left to let a coward breathe spirit enough to dare his brother's death? I'll tell thee truth in all, fair son, said he. Right will all this event conceived by thee. If Menelaus in his brother's house had found the idle liver with his spouse. Arrived from Troy, he had not lived nor dead, had the digged heap poured on his lustful head, but fowls and dogs had torn him in the fields, far off of Argos, not a dame in yields had given him any tear, so foul his fact, shown even to women. Us Troy's wars had racked to every sinew's sufferance, while he in Argos uplands lived from those works free, and Agamemnon's wife with force of word flattered and softened, who at first abhorred a fact so infamous. The heavenly dame a good mind had, but was in blood to blame. There was a poet to whose care the king his queen committed, and in everything, when he from Troy went, charged him to apply himself in all guard to her dignity. But when strong fate so wrapped in her effects that she resolved to leave her fit respects, into a desert isle her guardian led, there left the rapine of the vultures fed. Then brought he willing home his will's one prize, on sacred altars offered many thighs, hung in the gods' veins many ornaments, garments and gold, that he the past events of such a labor to his wish had brought, as neither fell into his hope nor thought. At last from Troy sailed Sparta's king and I, both holding her untouched, and that his eye might see no worse of her when both were blown to sacred Sunium of Minerva's town. The goodly promontory with his shaft severe, augur Apollo slew him that did steer Atreides' ship, as he then stern did guide, and she the full speed of her sail applied. He was a man that nations of men excelled in safe guide of a vessel, when a tempest rushed in on the ruffled seas. His name was Phrontis Onitorides. And thus was Menelaus held from home, whose way he thirsted so to overcome, to give his friend the earth being his pursuit, and all his exequies to execute. But sailing still to wide seas to reach, some shore for fit performance did fetch the steep mountain of the Malians, and there, with open voice offended Jupiter, proclaimed the voyage's repugnant mine, and poured the puffs out of a shrieking wind, the nourished billows heightened like to hills, and with the fleet's division fulfills his hate proclaimed upon a part of Crete, casting that the navy where the sea waves meet, rough Dardanus, and where the Sidons live. There is a rock on which the sea doth drive, bare and all broken on the confines set of Cortes, that the dark seas likewise fret, and hither sent the south a horrid drift of waves against the top that was the left of the torn cliff, as far as faced as the strand. A little stone the great sea rage did stand. The men here driven escaped hard to the ship's sore shocks, the ships themselves being wrecked against the rocks, save only 5 the blue forecastles bore, which wind and water cast on Egypt's shore. When he their victualling well and store of gold aboard his ship brought, his wild way did hold, and other languaged men was forced to roam. Mean space Augustus made sad work at home, and slew his brother, forcing to his stay Atreides' subjects, and did 7 years lay his yoke upon the rich Mycenaean state. But in the 8th, 'tis a frightening fate, divine Orestes home from Athens came, and what his royal father felt, the same wives for his lustful guests, and for his mother whom he did detest. The self-made day upon him stole the king, good at a martial shout, and goods did bring, as many as his frightened fleet could bear. But thou, my son, too long by no means err, thy goods left free for many a spoiled guest, lest they consume some and divide the rest, and thou perhaps besides thy voyage lose. To Menelaus yet thy course dispose, I wish charge thee, who but late arrived from such a shore, and men as have lived, and a return from them he never thought, and whom black whirlwinds violently brought within a sea so vast that in a year not any fowl could pass it anywhere, so huge and horrid was it. But go thou with the ship and men, or if thou please it now, to pass by the land, there shall be brought for thee both horse and chariot, and thy guides shall be my sons themselves, to Sparta the divine, and to the king, whose looks like amber shine. Entreat the truth of him, nor love he lies, wisdom and truth is in his passing wise. This said, the sun went down, and up rose night, when Pallas spake, O father, all good right, bear thy directions, but divide we now the sacrifices' tongues, mix wine and vow to Neptune and the other ever blessed, that have sacrificed we made to rest. The fit hour runs now, light dives out of date, at sacred feast we must not sit too late. She said, they heard, the herald water gave, the youths crowned cups with wine, and let all have their equal shares, beginning from the cup. Their parting banquet, all the tongues cut up, the fire they gave them sacrificed and rose, wine and divine rites used to each dispose. Minerva and Telemachus desired they might to ship be with this leave retired. He moved with that, provoked thus their abodes. Now Jove forbid, and all the long-lived gods, your leaving me to sleep aboard a ship, as I had drunk our poor Peneus' whip, even to my nakedness, and had nor sheet, nor covering in my house, that warm nor sweet. A guest nor I myself had means to sleep, where I both weeds and wealthy coverings keep for all my guests. Nor shall fame ever say, the dear son of the man Ulysses lay all night a shipboard here, while my days shine, or in my court whiles any son of mine enjoys survival, who shall guest receive, whomever my house hath enough to leave. My much-loved father, said Minerva, well, all this becomes thee, but persuade to dwell this night with thee thy son Telemachus, for more convenient is the course for us, that he may follow to thy house and rest, and I may board our black sail that addressed at all parts I may make our men and cheer, all with the presence, since of all men there, I boast myself the senior, the others are youths, that attend in free and friendly care. Great soul Telemachus, and are his peers, in fresh similitude of form and years. For their conferments, I will therefore now sleep in our black bark, but when light shall show her silver forehead, I send my way amongst the caucons, men that are to pay a debt to me, nor small nor new. For this, take him home now. Take him home, whom in the morn dismiss with chariot and your sons, and give him horse, a blessed in strength and of the speediest course. This said, away she flew, formed like the fowl, men called the ossifrage, when every soul amaze invaded, even the old unskilled in war when deities now, so young and saintly and become thy guides, nor any of the heaven-housed states besides, but Tritigenius self, the seed of Jove, the great in praise that did in honor move so much about thy father amongst all, the Grecian Armian. Fairest queen, let fall on me like favors, give me good renown, which as on me, on my loved wife let down, and all my children. I will burn to thee an ox right bred, broad-headed and yoke-free, to no man's hand yet humbled. Him will I, his horns in gold hid, give thy deity. Thus prayed he, and she heard, and home he led his sons and all his heaps of kindred, who entering his court royal everyone, he marshalled in a several seat and throne. And everyone so kindly come he gave his sweet wine cup, which none was let to have before his 11th year landed him from Troy, which now the butleress had leave to employ, who therefore pierced it and did give it vent. Of this the old duke did a cup present to every guest, made his maid many a prayer, that wears the shield fringed with his nurse's hair, and gave her sacrifice. With this rich wine and food sufficed, sleep with all eyes did decline, and all for home went, but his court alone, Telemachus, divine Ulysses' son, must make his dodging or not please his heart. A bed, all checkered with elaborate art, within a portico that rung like brass, he brought his guests to, and his bed fear was Pisistratus, the material guide of men, that lived of all his sons unwed till then, himself lain in a by room far above, his bed made by his barren wife, his love. The rosy-fingered morn no sooner shone, but up he rose, took air, and sat upon a seat of white and goodly polished stone, that such a gloss as richest ointments wore. Before his high gates were the counselor that matched the gods his father used to sit, who now by fate force stooped as low as it. And here sat Nestor, holding in his hand a scepter, and about him round did stand, as early up his sons' troop, Perseus, the godlike Thrasymed, and Aratus, and Sebphron, Stratius, the sixth and last Pisistratus, and by him have embraced, still as they came, divine Telemachus. To these spake Nestor, old Gavinius. Haste, loved sons, and do me a desire, that for first of all the gods I may aspire to Pallas' favor, who vouchsafed to me at Neptune's feast recite so openly. Let one to field go, and an ox with speed caused hither brought, which let the herdsman lead. Another to my dear guest's vessel go, and all his soldiers bring, save only two. A third the smith that works in cold command, Laertes to attend and lend his hand, to plate the both horns around about with gold. The rest remain here close. But first see told the maids within that they prepare a feast, set seats through all the court, see straight addressed, the purest water, and get fuel felled. This said, not one but in the service held a vicious hand. The ox came led from field, the soldiers stripped from a ship, the smith he came, and those tools brought that served the actual frame his art conceived, brought anvil, hammers brought, fair tongs, and all with which the gold was wrought. Minerva likewise came to set the crown on that kind sacrifice, and make it her own. Then straight did both the horns enfold, and trimmed the offering so the goddess joyed, about which thus were Nestor's sons employed. Divine Xephron and fair Stratius held both the horns. The water odorous in which they washed what the rites was vowed, Aretas in a cauldron all bestrode, with herbs and flowers served in from the holy room, where all were dressed and whence the rites must come. And after him a hollowed virgin came, that brought the barley cake and blew the flame, the axe with which the ox should both be felled, and got forth. Thrasmith stood by and held. Perseus the vessel held, that should retain the purple liquor of the offering slain. Then washed the pious father, then the cake of barley salt and oil made took and brake. Asked many a boon of palace, and the state of all the offering did initiate in 3 parts, cutting off the hair and cast amidst the flame. All the invocation passed, and all the cake broke manly thrice med. Stood near and sure, and such a blow he laid aloft the offering that the earth he sunk. His neck nerves surrendered and his spirits shrunk. Out shrieked the daughter-in-laws and wife of 3-aged Nestor, who had eldest life, of Clymen's daughters, chaste Eurydice. The ox on broad earth then laid laterally, they held while Duke Pisistratus the throat dissolved, and set the sable blood afloat, and then the life the bones left. Instantly they cut him up, apart flew either thigh, that with the fat they dubbed with art alone, the throat brisk and the sweet bread breaking on. Then Nestor broiled them on the coal-turned wood, poured black wine on, and by him young men stood, that spits fine pointed held, on which when burned the solid thighs were, they transfixed and turned, in the innards cut in cancels, which the meat vowed to the gods consume, they roast and eat. In mean space Polycaste, called the fair, Nestor's youngest daughter, bathed Ulysses' hair, whom having cleansed and with rich balms bespread, she cast a white shirt quickly over his head, and then his weeds put on, when forth he went, and did the person of a god present, came and by Nestor took his honored seat, as pastor of the people. Then the meat of all the spare parts roasted off they drew, set and fell to, but soon the temperate few rose, and in golden bowls filled others wine, till when the rest felt thirst of feast decline, Nestor his sons bade fetch his high man horse, and them in chariot joined to run the course. The prince resolved, obeyed as soon as heard was Nestor by his sons, who straight prepared said in the last clip. Honestly, I don't remember what I said in the last clip, but I'm gonna finish reading. I'm gonna read book 4, I think it was. Because we're behind schedule, guys. We're way behind schedule. And I can't have that, okay? Oh my god. I have to like do math on how many chapters I need to read in order to make it by the 16th of July. It's the 3rd. No wait, technically it's still the 2nd of July. Right now. Tomorrow it'll be the 3rd, even though it's the 3rd right now, but the date only changes. Tomorrow only happens after I've slept. So today is still today, okay, even though just because I haven't slept, okay. Moving on, book 4, the argument. Received now in the Spartan court, Telemachus prefers report to Menelaus of the throngs of wars with him, and they're wrong. A treatise tells the Greeks retreat, and doth a prophecy repeat that Proteus made, by which he knew his brother's death, and then doth show how with Calypso lived the sire of his young guest. The wooers conspire, their princess of death, whose treachery known, Penelope in tears doth drown, whom Pallas by a dream doth cheer, and in a similitude appear of fair Iphthyma. Okay, Iphthyma, known to be the sister of Penelope. Okay, another argument. Here of the sire, the son doth hear, the wooers conspire, the mother's fear. Okay, book 4. In Lacedaemon, now the nurse of Wales, these two arrived and found at festivals, with mighty concourse, the renowned king, his son and daughter jointly marrying. Alector's daughter, he did give his son, strong Megapenthes, who his life begun by Menelaus, bondmaid whom he knew in years when Helen could no more renew, an issue like divine Hermione, who held in all fair form as high degree as golden Venus. Her he married now to great Achilles' son, who was by vow betrothed to her at Troy, and thus the gods to constant loves give nuptial periods, whose state here passed the Myrmidon's rich town, of which she shared in the imperial crown, with horse and chariots he resigned her to. Mean space, the high huge house with feasted flow of friends and neighbors joying with the king, amongst whom did a heavenly poet sing and touch his harp, amongst whom likewise stands the two who in the dumb motions advanced, would prompt the singer what to sing and play. All this time in the outer court did stay, with horse and chariot Telemachus, and Nestor's noble son Pisistratus, whom Eteonius coming forth descried, and being a servant to the king most tried, in care and his respect he ran and cried, guests Jove kept Menelaus to such men as are from form of a high Saturnian strain. Inform your pleasure if we shall unclose their horse from coach, or say they must dispose their way to such house as may embrace their known arrival with more welcome grace. He angry answered, thou didst never show thyself a fool both sides till now, but now as if turned a childish speech, thence thy vain spirits. We ourselves now house welcome guests but take their steeds from coach, and with attendants guide in their approach. This said, he rushed abroad and called some more, tried in such service that together bore up to the guests and took their steeds without sweat. Beneath their yokes from coach at manager set, wheat and white barley gave them mixed and placed, their chariot by a wall so clear it cast a light quite throughout it. And then they led their guests to the divine house, which so fed their eyes at all parts with illustrious sights, that admiration seized them. Like the lights, the sun and moon gave all the palace through, a lustre through it. Satiate with whose view, down to the king's most bright kept baths they went, where handmaids did their services present, bathed, balmed them, shirts and well-nept weeds put on, and by Atreides' side set each his throne. Then did the handmaid royal water bring, and to the laver, rich and glittering, of massy gold poured, which she placed upon a silver cauldron, into which might run the water as they washed. Then set she near a polished table, on which all the cheer the present could afford a reverend dame that kept the larder set. A cook then came, and divers dishes borne, then served again. Furnished the board with bowls of gold. And then, I feel like I just read that. Oh my god, it's because hold on. I have nowhere to put my book. I feel like I have to like lean back so far to be able to see it that I can't read it properly. Okay, where was I? A cook then came, and divers dishes borne, then served again, furnished the board with bowls of gold, and then his right hand given the guest, Atreides said, "Eat and be cheerful, appetite allayed. I long to ask of what stock you descend, for not from parents whose race nameless end we must derive your offspring. Men obscure could get none such as you. The portraitor of Jove sustained and scepter-bearing kings, your either person in his presence brings. An ox's fat chine then they up did lift, and set before the guests, which was a gift, sent as an honor to the king's own taste. They saw yet 'twas but to be eaten placed, and fell to it. But food and wines care passed, till Amachus thus prompted Nestor's son, his ear close laying to be heard of none. Consider thou who most my mind esteems the brass work here, how rich it is in beams, and how besides it makes the whole house sound. What gold and amber, silver, ivory round it wrought about it. Out of doubt, the hall of Jupiter Olympius hath of all the state the like. How many infinites to take up to admiration all men's sights. Atreides overheard and said, "Loved son, no mortal must affect contention with Jove, whose dwellings are of endless date. Perhaps of man some one may emulate, or none my house or me, for I am one that many a grave extreme have undergone, much error felt by sea, and till the 8th year had never stay, but wander far and near, Cyprus, Phoenicia, and Cydonia, and fetch the far off Ethiopia, reach the Arabia of Arabia, and Libya, where with horns eaves ye in their lambs, which every full year eaves or 3 times dams, where neither king nor shepherd one comes near, or flesh or sweet milk all the year. They ever milk their eaves. And here while I erred gathering means to live, one murderously unawares, unseen, bereft my brother's life, chiefly betrayed by his abhorred wife. So hold I, not enjoying what you see, and of your father, if they living be, you must have heard this, since my sufferings were so great and famous from this place here, so rarely well built, furnished so well, and substanced with such a precious deal of well got treasure, banished by the doom of fate and erring, as I had no home. And now I have, and use it not to take, the entire delight it offers, but to make continual wishes that a triple part of all it holds were wanting, so my heart were eased of sorrows taken for their deaths, that fell at Troy by their revived breaths. And thus sit I here weeping, mourning still, each least man lost, and sometimes make mine ill, in praying just tears for the loss of my joy. Sometimes I breathe my vows, for in annoy the pleasure soon admits satiety. But all these men's wants whet not so mine eye, though much they move me, as one sole man's miss, for which my sleep and me even loathsome is, in his renewed thought, since no great hath won grace for such labors as Laertes' son hath wrought and suffered himself, naught else, but future sorrows forging to me hells, for his long absence, since I cannot know if life or death detain him, since such woe for his love old Laertes' wise wife and poor young son sustains from new with life, he left as sireless. This speech, grief to tears, poured from the sun's lids on the earth his ears, told of the father did excite, who kept his cheeks dry with his red weed as he wept, his both hands used therein. Atreides then began to know him, and did strive retain, if he should let himself confess his sire, or with all fitting circumstance inquire, while this his thoughts disputed forth did shine, like to the golden distaff decked divine, from her bed's high and odoriferous room, Helen, to whom of an elaborate loom addressed the settled chair, Alcibi brought a piece of tapestry of fine wool wrought, Philo a silver cabinet conferred, given by Alessandra nuptially endeared to Lord Polybius, whose abode in Thebes, the Egyptian city was, where wealth in heaps his famous house held, out of which did go in gift to Atreides silver bathtubs two tripods, and of persuade me thus, who did but know, when newly he was born, the form they bore. But 'tis his Father's grace, who more and more his grace resembles, that makes me retain thoughts that he now is like Telemachus then, left by his sire when Greece did undertake Troy's bold war for my impudency's sake. He answered, Now, wife, what you think I know, the true cast of his father's eye doth show in his eyes order, both his head and hair, his hands and feet his father's are, of whom so well remembered I should now acknowledge for me his continual flow of cares and perils, yet still patient. But I should do much move him, that doth vent such bitter tears for that which hath been spoke, which shunning soft show, see how he would cloak, and with his purple weed his weepings hide. Then Nestor's son, Pisistratus, replied, Great pastor of the people, kept of God, he is Ulysses' son, but his abode not made before here, and he modest too. He holds it an indignity to do a deed so vain, to use the boast of words, where your words are on wing, whose voice affords delights to us. If a god did break the air among us, and vouchsafe to speak. But me my father, old Duke Nestor, sent to be his consort hither, his content, not to be heightened so as with your sight, in hope that therewith words and actions might inform his comforts from you, since he is extremely grieved and injured by the miss of his great father, suffering even at home, and few friends found to help him overcome his too weak sufferance. Now his sire is gone, amongst the people not afforded one to check the miseries that made him thus. And this the state is of Telemachus. O gods, said he, how certain now I see my house enjoys that friend's son that for me hath undergone so many willing fights, whom I resolved past all the Grecian knights to hold in love if I return by seas. The far off thunderer did ever please to grant our wishes, and to his respect a palace and a city to erect. My vow had bound me with her, bringing then his riches and his son and all his men like effect in me excuse, if it be lawful. I affect no use of tears thus after meals, at least at night. But when the morn brings forth with tears her light, it shall not then impair me to bestow my tears on any worthy's overthrow. It is the only right that wretched men can do dead friends to cut hair and complain. But death my brother took, whom none could call the Grecian coward you best knew of all. I was not there, nor saw, but men report, Antilochus excelled the common sort, for footsmanship, or for the chariot race, or in the fight for hardy hold of place. O friend, said he, since thou hast spoken so, at all parts as one wise should say and do, and like one far beyond thyself in years, thy words shall bound to be to our former tears. Oh, he is questionless a right-born son, that of his father hath not only one, the person, but the wisdom, and that sire complete himself that hath a son entire. Jove did not only his full fate adorn when he was wedded, but when he was born. As now Saturnius through his life's whole date hath Nestor's bliss raised to as steep a state, both in his age to keep in peace his house, and to have children wise and valorous. But let us not forget or rear feasts thus. Let some give water here. Telemachus, the mornings shall yield time to you and me, to do what fits and reason mutually. This said, the careful servant of the king, as valiant poured on the issue of the spring, and all to ready feast said ready hand. But Helen now on new device did stand. Infusing straight a medicine to their wine, the drowning cares and angers did decline. All thought of ill, who drunk her cup could shed. All that day not a tear, no, not if dead. That day his father or his mother were, not if his brother, child, or chiefest dear, he should see murdered then before his face. Such useful medicines, only born in grace of what was good, would Helen ever have. And this juice of her Polydamna gave, the wife of Thon, an Egyptian born, whose rich earth herbs of medicine do adorn in great abundance. Many healthful are, and many baneful. Every man is there, a good physician of nature's grace, for all the nations sprung of Paeon's race. When Helen then her medicine had infused, she bad poured wine to it, and the speech used. Atreides and these good men's sons, great Jove, make good and ill one after other move, and all things earthly, for he can do all. The woes past, therefore, he so late let fall. The comforts he affords us let us take. Feast and with fit discourse merry make. Nor will I other use. As then our blood grieved for Ulysses, since he was so good. Since he was good, let us delight to hear how good he was and what his sufferings were, though every fight and every suffering deed patient Ulysses underwent exceed my woman's power to number or to name. But what he did and suffered when he came amongst the Trojans, where ye Grecians all took part with sufferance, I in part can call to your kind memories how with A number of the Trojan guards retired and reached the fleet for slight and force admired. Their husband's death by him the Trojan wives shrieked for, but I made triumphs for their lives. For then my heart conceived that once again I should reach home, and yet did still retain woe for the slaughters Venus made for me, when both my husband, my Hermione, and bridal room she robbed of so much right, and drew me from my country with her sleight. Though nothing under heaven I here did need, that could my fancy or my beauty feed. Her husband said, Wife, what you please to tell is true at all parts and becomes you well, and I myself now may say have seen the minds and manners of a world of men, and groat heroes measuring many a ground, have never by these eyes that light me found one with a bosom so to be beloved as that in which the accomplished spirit moved of patient Ulysses. What brave man! He both did act and suffer when he won the town of Ilion in the brave built horse, when all we chief states of the Grecian force were housed together, bringing death and fate amongst the Trojans. You, wife, may relate, for you at last came to us. God, that would the Trojans glory gave charge you should approach the engine, and Deiphobus, the godlike, followed. Thrice he circled us. Thrice he circled us, with full survey of it, and often tried the hollow crafts that in it were implied. When all the voices of their wives in it you took on you with voices so like and fit, and every man by name so visited, that I, Ulysses, and King Diomed, said in the midst of hearing how you called Tydides, and myself as half appalled with your remorseful plaints, would passing vain have broke own silence rather than again endure respectless their so moving cries. But Ithacus, our strongest fantasies, contained within us from the slenderest noise, and every man there sat without a voice. And Ciclus only would have answered thee, but his speech Ithacus incessantly with strong hand held in, till Minerva's call, charging thee of Ulysses, saved us all. Telemachus replied, Much greater is my grief for hearing this high praise of his, for all this doth not his sad death divert, nor can thou in him swelled an iron heart. Prepare and lead then, if you please, to rest. Sleep that we hear not will content us best. Then Argive Helen made her handmaid go, and put fair bedding in the portico, lax purple blankets on rugs warm and soft, and cast an arras coverlet aloft. They torches took, made haste, and made the bed, when both the guests were to their lodgings led, within a portico without the house. Atreides and his large train wearing spouse, the excellent of woman for the way, in a retired receipt together lay. The morn arose, the king rose and put on his royal weeds, his sharp sword hung upon his ample shoulders, for this chamber went, and did the person of God present. Telemachus accosts him, who begun speech of his journey's proposition, and what, my young Ulysses hero, proved thee on the port back of the sea, to visit Lacedaemon the divine. Speak truth, some public good or only thine. I come, said he, to hear if any fame breathe snowy oxen, nor will ever keep their steels without them. And these men are they that woo my mother most inhumanly, committing injury on injury. To thy knees, therefore, I am come to attend relation of the sad and wretched end my erring father felt, if witnessed by your own eyes, or the certain news that fly from others' knowledges. For more than is the usual heap of human miseries his mother bore him to. Vouchsafe me then, without all ruth of what I can sustain, the plain and simple truth of all you know. Let me beseech so much, if ever vow was made, and put in good effect to you. At Troy, where sufferance bred you so much smart, upon my father good Ulysses' part, and quit it now to me, himself in youth, unfolding only the unclosed truth. Hold on. He, deeply sighing, answered him, O shame that such poor vassals should affect the fame to share the joys of such a worthy's bed, as when a hind her calves late farrowed, to give suck enters the bold lion's den. He roots of hills and nearby valleys then, for food, their feeding, hunting, but at length, returning to his cavern gives his strength. The lives of both the mother and her brood, and deaths indecent, so the wooer's blood must pay Ulysses' powers as a sharp an end. O would to Jove, Apollo, and thy friend, the wise Minerva, that thy father were, as once he was, when his spirits did rear against Philomelides in a fight, performed in well-built Lesbos, where downright he struck the earth with them and gat a shout of all the Grecians. Oh, if now full out. He were as then, with the wooers copped, short-lived they all were, and the nuptials hooped would prove as desperate, but for thy demand, enforced with prayers, I'll let thee understand the truth directly, nor decline a thought, much less deceived or soothed thy search in aught. But with the old and still true-spoken God, that from the sea breathes oracles abroad, disclose to me, to thee I'll all impart, nor hide one word from thy solicitous heart. I was in Egypt where a mighty time the gods detained me, though my natural clime I never so desired, because their homes I did not greet with perfect hecatombs. For they will put men evermore in mind how much their masterly commandments bind. There is, besides, a certain island called Pharos, that with the high-waved seas walled, just against Egypt, and so much remote, as in a whole day with a foregale smote, a hollow ship can sail. And this isle bears a port most portly, where sea passengers put in still for fresh water and away to sea again. Yet here the gods did stay, my fleet full 20 days. The winds that are masters at sea in those prosperous puff would spare to put us off, and all men victuals here had quite corrupted as my men's minds were, had not a certain goddess given regard, and pitied me in an estate so hard, and 'twas Eidothea, honored Proteus' seed, that old seafarer. Her mind I made bleed with my compassion, when walked all alone from all my soldiers that were ever gone about the isle on fishing with hooks bent, hunger their bellies on her errand sent. She came close to me and spake, and thus began. Of all men thou art the most foolish man, or slack in business, or stay'st here of choice, and dost in all thy sufferance rejoice, that thus long livest detained here, and no end canst give thy tarriance. Thou dost much offend the minds of all thy fellows. I replied, whoever thou art of the divide, I must affirm that no way with my will I make abode here, but it seems some ill the gods inhabiting broad heaven sustain against my getting off. Inform me then, for Godheads all things know, what God is he that stays my passage from the fishy sea? Stranger, she said, I'll tell thee truth. There lives an old seafarer in these seas that gives a true solution of all secrets here, who deathless Proteus is the Egyptian peer, who can the deeps of all the seas acquire, who Neptune's priest is, and they say the sire that did beget me. Him if any way thou couldst inveigh, he would clear display thy course from hence, and how far off doth lie thy voyage's whole scope through Neptune's sky, informing thee, O God preserved beside, if thy desires would so be satisfied. Whatever God or Allah hath got event, and all the time thy long and hard course spent, since thy departure from thy house. This said, again I answered, make the slights displayed. Thy father useth lest his foresight see, or his foreknowledge taking note of me. He flies the fixed place of his used abode. 'Tis hard for man to countermine with God. She straight replied, I'll utter truth in all. When heaven's supremest height the sun doth scowl, the old sea tell truth leaves the deeps and hides, amidst a black storm when the west wind chides, and caves still sleeping, round about him sleep, with a short feet swimming forth the foamy deep. The sea calf's lovely Hallow-Sidon is called, from whom a noisome odor is exhaled, got from the whirlpools on whose earth they lie. Here, when the morn illustrates all the sky, I'll guide and seat thee in the fittest place for the performance thou hast now in chase. In meantime, reach thy fleet and choose our three of best exploit to go as aids to thee. But now I'll show thee all the old God's sleights. Ye first will number and take all the sights of those as guard down on the shore arrives. When having viewed and told them forth by fives, he takes place in their midst, and there doth sleep, like to a shepherd midst his flock of sheep. In his first sleep call up your heartiest cheer, vigor and violence, and hold him there, in spite of all his striving to be gone. He then will turn himself to every one of all things that in earth creep and respire, in water swim or shine in heavenly fire. Yet still hold you him firm, and much the more press him from passing. But when, as before, when sleep first rose. We rose as well, and the three of them on whom I most relied were firm at every force I chose and hide, straight to the many rivers served seas, and all assistant asked the deities. Meantime, Idothea the sea's broad breast embraced and brought for me and all my rest 4 of the sea cow's skins but newly flayed, to work a while which she had fashioned upon her father. Then within the sand a cover digging, when these cows should land, she sat expecting. We came close to her. She placed us orderly and made us wear each one his calf's skin. But we then must pass a huge exploit. The sea calf's savor was so passing sour, they still being bred at sea. It much afflicted us, for who can please to lie by one of these same sea-bred whales? But she preserves us, and to memory calls a rare commodity she fetched to us, ambrosia that in air most odorous, bears still about it, which she anointed round, or either nostril, and in it quite drowned the nasty whale smell. Then the great event, the whole morn's day with spirits patient, we lay expecting. One bright noon did flame forth from the sea in shoals, the sea cows came, and orderly at last lay down and slept along the sands, and then the old sea god crept from forth the deeps, and found his fat calves there, surveyed and numbered, and came never near the craft we used, but told us 5 for calves. Hold on. His temples then diseased with sleep he slaves, and then rushed we with an abhorrent cry, cast all our hands about him manfully, and then the old forger all his forms began. First was a lion with a mighty mane, then next a dragon, a pied panther, then a vast boar next, and suddenly did strain all into water. Last he was a tree, curled all at top, and shot up to the sky. We, with resolved hearts, held him firmly still, when the old one held too straight for all his skill to extricate, gave words and questioned me. Which of the gods, O Atreus' son, said he, advised and taught thy fortitude this slight, to take and hold me thus in my despite? What asks thy wish now? I replied. Thou knowst. Why dost thou ask? What wiles are these thou showst? I have within this isle been held for winds a wondrous time, and can by no means find an end to my retention. It hath spent the very heart in me. Give thou then vent to doubts thus bound in me. Ye gods know all, which of the godheads doth so foully fall on my addression home to stay me here, avert me from my way, the fishy clear, barred to my passage. He replied, of force, if to thy home thou wishest free recourse, to Jove and all the other deities thou must exhibit solemn sacrifice, and then the Black Sea for thee shall be clear, till thy loved country settled reach. But where ask these rites thy performance? 'Tis a fate. 'Tis a fate to thee and thy affairs appropriate, that thou shalt never see thy friends nor dread thy country's earth nor see inhabited thy so magnificent house, till thou make good thy voyage back to the Egyptian flood, whose waters fell from Jove, and there hast given to Jove and all gods housed in ample heaven devoted hecatombs, and then freed ways shall open to thee clear of all delays. This told he, and methought he break my heart, in such a long and hard course to divert my hope for home and charge my back retreat as far as Egypt. I made my answer yet. Father, they charge I'll perfect, but before resolve me truly if their natural shore all those Greeks and their ships do safe enjoy. Then Nestor and myself left, when from Troy we first raised sail, or whether any died at sea a death unfinished, or satisfied when war was past, by friends embraced in peace, resigned their spirits. He made answer, cease to ask so far, it fits thee not to be so cunning in thine own calamity, nor seek to learn what learned thou shouldst forget. Men's knowledge have proper limits, and should not breathe into the mind of God. But 'twill not long be as my thoughts abode, before thou buy this curious skill with tears. Many of those whose state so tempt thine ears are stooped by death, and many left alive. One chief of which in stronghold doth survive amidst the broad sea. Two in the retreat are done to death. I list not to repeat, who fell at Troy thyself was there in fight. But in return swift Ajax lost the light in his long-oared ship. Neptune yet a while saved him unwrecked to the Gyrian isle, a mighty rock removing from his way. And surely he had escaped the fatal day, in spite of Pallas, if to that foul deed he in her fane did, when he ravished the Trojan prophecies. He had not here adjoined an impious boat that he would bear, despite the gods, his ship safe through the waves, then raised against them. These his impious braves, when Neptune heard, in his strong hand he took his massy trident, and so soundly struck the rock Gyraean that into it cleft, of which one fragment on the land he left, the other fell into the troubled seas, at which first rushed Ajax oily Hades, and split his ship, and then himself afloat, swum on the rough waves of the world's vast moat, till having drunk a salt cup for his sin, there perished he. Thy brother yet did win the wreath from death, while in the waves they strove, afflicted by the reverend wife of Jove. But when the steep mount of Malian shore he seemed to reach, a most tempestuous blore, far to the fishy world at sight so sore, straight ravished him again as far as to the extreme bounds where the Aegeans stay, where first Thyestes dwelt, but then his son Aegisthus Thyestes lived. This done, when his return untouched appeared again, back turned the gods of the wind, and set him then hard by his house. Then, full of joy, he left his ship, and close to his country earth he cleft, kissed it, and wept for joy, poured tear on tear, to set so wishly his footing there. But see a sentinel that all they hear, crafty Aegisthus in a watchtower set, to spy his landing for a ward as great as to gold talents all his powers did call, to strict remembrance of his charge and all, discharged at first sight, which at first he cast on Agamemnon, and with all his haste informed Aegisthus. He an instant train laid for his slaughter 20 chosen men of his plebeians. He in ambush laid his other men, he charged to see pervade a feast, and forth with horse and chariots graced he rode to invite him, but in earth embraced horrible welcome, and to death it did bring. With the treacherous slaughter the unwary king received him at feast, and like an his son. With ceaseless weeping never wish was won. Use uttermost essay to reach thy home, and all unwares upon the murderer come, for torture taking him thyself alive, or let Orestes that should far outstrive thee in fit vengeance, quite like the light of such a dark soul, and do thou the right of burial to him with a funeral feast. With these last words I fortified my breast, in which against a generous spring began a fitting comfort, as I was a man, but as a brother I must ever mourn. Yet forth I went and told him the return of these I knew, but he had named a third, held on the broad seas still with life as inspired, whom I besought to know, though likewise dead, and I must mourn alike. He answered, he is Laertes' son, whom I beheld in nymph Calypso's palace, who compelled his stay with her, and since he could not see his country earth, he mourned incessantly, for he had neither ship instruct with oars, nor men to fetch him from those stranger shores, where leave him and to thyself descend, whom not in Argos fate nor death shall end, but immortal ends of all the earth, so ruled by them the order death by birth, the field Elysian fate to thee will give, where Rhadamanthus rules and where men live, a never troubled life, where snow nor showers, nor irksome winter spends his fruitless powers, but from ocean severe still resumes a constant breath that all the fields perfumes. Which since thou marriedst Helen or thy hire, and Jove himself is by her side, thy sire. This said, he dived the deep some watery heaps. I and my tried men took us to our ships, and words of thoughts I varied with my steps. Arrived and shipped the silent solemn night, and sleep bereft us our visual light. At morn masts, sails reared, we sat, left the shores, and beat the foamy ocean with our oars. Again, then we the Jove's fallen flood did fetch, as far as Egypt, where we did besiege the gods with hecatombs, whose anger ceased. I doomed my brother that I might be blessed. All rites performed, all haste I made for home, and all the prosperous winds about were come. I had the passport now of every god, and here closed all these labors, period. Here stay then till the 11th or 12th day's light, and I'll dismiss thee well, gifts exquisite, preparing for thee chariot horses for 3, a cup of curious frame to serve for thee, to serve the immortal gods with sacrifice, mindful of me while all suns light thy skies. He answered, stay me not too long time here, though I could sit attending all the year. Nor should my house nor parents with a desire take my affection from you so on fire. With love to hear you are my thoughts, but so my Pylian friends I shall afflict with woe, who mourn even this day. Whatsoever be the gifts your graces to bestow on me, vouchsafe them such as I may bear and save, for your sake ever. Horse I list not have, to keep in Ithaca, but leave them here, to your soil's daintiest, where the broad fields bear sweet cypress grass, where men fed load doth flow, where wheat like spelt and wheat itself doth grow, where barley white and spreading like a tree, but Ithaca hath neither ground to be, for any length it comprehends a race, to try a horse's speed nor any place. cliff-bred goat than raise or please a steed. Of all isles, if the good doth least provide, are meats to feed a horse or ways to ride. He smiling said, "Oh God, wait, of God." He smiling said, "Of good blood art thou son. What speech so young? What observation hast thou made of the world? I well am pleased to change my gifts to thee, as being confessed unfit. Indeed, my store is such I may. Of all my house gifts then that up I lay, for treasure there I will bestow on thee, the fairest and of greatest price to me. I will bestow on thee a rich carved cup, of silver all, but all the brims wrought up with finest gold. It was the only thing that the heroical Sidonian king presented to me when we were to part at his receipt of me, and was the art of the great artist that of heaven is free, and yet even this will I bestow on thee." The speech thus ended, guests came and did bring muttons for presents, and the godlike kings, and spear-prompting wine that Stranius makes. The ribboned wreathed wives brought fruit and cakes. Thus in this house did these their feast apply, and in Ulysses' house activity the wooers practiced tossing of the spear, the stone, and hurling. Thus delighted were they exercised such insolence before, even in the court that wealthy pavements wore. And Antinous did still their strifes decide, and he that was in person defied Eurymachus, both ringleaders of all, for in their virtues they were principal. These by no man's son to Phronius were cited now, who made the question thus: Antinous, does any friend here know where this Telemachus returns, or no? From sandy Pylus he made bold to take my ship with him, of which I now should make fit use myself, and sail in her as far as spacious Elis, where of mine there are 12 delicate mares, and under their sides go laborious mules that yet did never know the yoke nor labor, some of which should bear the taming now, if I could fetch them there. The speed, oh my god, water. The speech the rest admired, nor dreamed that he, Neleus Pylus, ever thought to see, but was at field about his flock's survey, or thought his herdsmen held him so away. Euphetheus' son Antinous then replied, when went he, or with what train dignified, or his of select Ithacensians youth? Pressed men or bond men were they? Tell the truth. Could he effect this? Let me truly know. To gain thy vessel did he violence show, and use her against thy will, or had her free, when fitting question he had made with thee? No man answered. I did freely give my vessel to him who deserved to live. That would do other when such men as he did in distress ask. He should churlish be, that would deny him. Of our youth the best amongst the people, to the interest his charge did challenge in them, giving way with all the tribute all their powers could pay. Their captain, as he took the ship, I knew, who Mentor was, or God, a deity show, masked in his likeness. But to think 'twas he I must admire, for I did clearly see, but yester morning, godlike Mentor here. Yet the other evening he Thus went he for home, and left the rest with envy overcome, who sat and pastime left. Euphetius' son, sad and with rage his entrails overrun, his eyes like flames thus interposed his speech. Strange thing, an action of how proud a reach is there committed by Telemachus, a boy, a child, and we, a sort of us, vowed against this voyage, yet admitted thus, with ship and choice youth of our people too. But let him on, and all his mischief do. Jove shall convert over upon himself his powers, before their ill presumed he brings on ours. Provide me then a ship and 20 men, to give her manage that against again. He turns for home on the Ithacian seas. Our cliffy Samian I may interpret. Waylay and take him and make all his craft sail with his ruin for his father saved. This all applauded and gave charge to do, rose and to great Ulysses' house did go. But long time passed not ere Penelope had notice of their far-fetched treachery. Midden the herald told her, who had heard without the hall how they within conferred, and hasted straight to tell it to the queen, who from the entry having maiden seen, prevents him thus. Now herald, what affair intended the famous wars in your repair, to tell Ulysses' maids that they must cease from doing her work and their banquets dress. I would to heaven that leaving wooing me, nor ever troubling other company, here might the last feast be, and most extreme, that ever any shall address for them. They never meet but to consent and spoil, and reap the free fruits of another's toil. Oh, did they never, when they children were, what to their fathers was Ulysses here, who never did against any one proceed with unjust usage or in word or deed. 'Tis yet with other kings another right, one to pursue with love another spite, yet he's still yet just, nor would thou might devour, nor to the worst did ever taste of power. But their unruled acts show their mind's estate. Good turns received once, things grow out of date. Midden, the learned in wisdom, answered her, I wish, O queen, that their ingratitudes were their worst ill towards you, but worse by far, and much more deadly their endeavors are, which Jove will fail them in. Telemachus, their purpose is, as he returns to us, to give their sharp steels in a cruel death, who now is gone to learn if fame can breathe news of his sire and will to Pylian shore, and sacred Sparta in his search explore. This news dissolved her both knees and heart. Long silence held her ere one word would part. Her eyes stood full of tears, her small soft voice, all late use lost, that yet at last had choice of wanted words, which briefly thus she used. Why left my son his mother? Why refused his with the solid shore to try the seas, and put in ships the trust of his distress, that are the sea to men unbridled horse, and run past rule their far engaged course, amidst the moisture past all mean unstayed. No need compelled this, did he it afraid to live and leave prosperity his name. I know not, he replied, if the humor came from current of his own instinct or flowed from others' investigations. instigations, but he vowed attempt to Pylos or Odyssey descried his sire's return or know what death he died. This said, he took him to Ulysses' house. After the wooers, the Ulyssean spouse run through with foes, let torture seize her mind, nor in her choice of state chairs stood inclined to take her seat, but the abject threshold chose of her fair chamber for her loathed repose, and mourned most wretch-like round about her fell, her handmaids joined in a continual yell. From every corner of the palace all degrees turned to her comforts full, their own dejection to whom her complained she thus enforced. The gods beyond constraint of any measure urged these tears on me, nor was there ever dame of my degree so past degree grieved. First a lord so good that had such hardy spirits in his blood, that all the virtues was adorned with all, that all the Greeks did their superior call to part with us and lose, and now a son so worthily beloved a course to run beyond my knowledge, whom rude tempest have made far from home his most inglorious grave. Unhappy wenches that no one of all, though in the reach of every one must fall, his taking ship sustained the careful mind to call from me from my bed who this designed, and most vowed course in him had either stayed. How much soever hasted or death laid, ye should have left me. Many a man I have that would have called old Dolius my slave, that keeps my orchard whom my father gave at my departure to have run and told Laertes this to try if he could hold from running through the people and from tears in telling them of these vowed murderers, that both divine Ulysses' hope and his resolved to end in their conspiracies. His nurse then Euryclea made reply, Dear sovereign, let me with your own hands die, or cast me off here, I'll not keep from thee one word of what I know. He entrusted me with all his purpose, and I gave him all the bread and wine for which he pleased to call. But then a mighty oath he made me swear, not to report it to your royal ear, before the 12th day either we should appear, or you should ask me when you heard him gone. Impair not then your beauties with your moan, but wash and put on tear-stained garments on. Ascend your chamber with your ladies here, and brave the seed of goat-nursed Jupiter, divine Athenia, to preserve your son, and she will save him from confusion. The old king to whom your hopes stand so inclined, for his grave counsels you perhaps may find unfit affected for his age's sake. But heaven kings wax not old, and therefore make his prayers fit to them, for my thoughts never will believe the heavenly powers conceit so ill. The seed of righteous are say syads to end it utterly, but still will please, and some place evermore some one of them, to save and deck him with a diadem, give him possession of erected towers, and far stretched fields crowned all of fruits and flowers. This eased her heart and dried her humorous eyes, when having washed and weeds of sacrifice pure and unstained with her distrustful tears, put on with all her women's ministers up to a chamber of most heights she rose, and cakes of salt and barley did impose within a wicker basket, all which broke, and to send order thus she did invoke. Great Virgin of the co-preserved God, if ever the inhabited abode of wise Ulysses held the fated thighs of sheep and oxen, made thy sacrifice, wars. By his devotion hear me, nor forget his pious services, but save sea set his dear son on these shores, and banish hence these wooers past all men in insolence. They said, she shrieked, and Pallas heard her prayer. The wars broke with tumult all the air about the shady house, and one of them, whose pride his youth had made the more extreme, said, now the many wars honored queen will surely satiate her delightful spleen, and one of us in an instant nuptials take. Poor dame, she dreams not what design we make upon the life and slaughter of her son. So said he, but so said was not so done, whose arrogant spirit in a thought so vain, and Tinoas chid and said, for shame contain these braving speeches, who can tell who hears, and we are now in reach of others' ears. If our intention please us, let us call our spirits upon them, and let speeches fall. By watchful danger men must silent go. What we resolve on, let's not say but do. This said, he chose 120 men that bore best reckoning with him, and to ship and shore all hasted reached the ship, launched, raised the mast, put sails in, and with leather loops made fast the oars. Sails hoisted, arms their men did bring, all giving speed and form to everything. Then to the high deeps their rigged vessel driven, they supposed expected the approaching even. Mean-spaced Penelope her chamber kept, and bed, and neither ate, nor drank, nor slept. Her strong thoughts wrought so on her blameless son, still in contention if he should be done to death or escape the impious war's design. Look how a lion whom men troops combine to hunt and close him in a crafty ring, much varied through conceive and fear doth sting, for urgent danger so fair she till sleep, all juncture of her joints and nerves did steep, in his dissolving humor when at rest. Pallas her favors varied and addressed, and idle that if Thima did present, instructor of her every lineament, great-souled Icarius' daughter, whom for spouse Eumelus took, that kept in Phares' house. This to divine Ulysses' house she sent, to try her best mean how she might consent. Mournful Penelope and meek relent, the strict addiction in her to deplore. This idol, like a worm that less or more contracts or strains her, did itself convey beyond the wards or windings of the key into the chamber and above her head, her seat assuming. Thus she comforted distressed Penelope. Doth sleep thus cease, thy powers affected with so much disease. The gods that nothing troubles will not see thy tears nor griefs in any least degree, sustained with cause, for they will guard thy son, safe to his wished and native mansion, since he is no offender of their states. They so to such are firmer than their fates. The wise Penelope received her thoughts, bound with a slumber most delicious, and in the port of dreams. O sister, why repair you hither, since so far off lie your house and household? You were never here before this hour, and would you now give cheer to my so many woes and miseries, affecting fitly all their faculties, my soul and mind hold, having lost before a husband that of all the virtues bore the palm amongst the Greeks, and whose renown so ample was the refers to his love by ship is gone, a tender plant that yet was never grown. To labor taste nor the commerce of men, for whom more than my husband I complain. And lest he should at any sufferance touch, or in the sea or by the men, so much is strange to him that must his consorts be. Fear and chill trembling shake each joint of me. Besides his danger sets on foes professed, to waylay his return that hath addressed, plots for his death. The scars discerned dream said, be of comfort, nor fear so extreme. Let thus dismay thee, thou hast such a mate, attending thee as some at any rate would wish to purchase, for her power is great. Minerva pieties thy delights defeat, whose grace hath sent me to the foretell thee these. If thou, said she, be of the goddesses, and heardst her tell thee these, thou mayst as well from her tell all things else. Deign then to tell, if yet the man to all misfortunes born, my husband lives and sees the sun adorn the darksome earth, and hides his wretched head in Pluto's house, and lives amongst the dead. I will not, she replied, my breath exhale in one continued and perpetual tale. Lives he or dies he, 'tis a filthy use to be in vain and idle speech profuse. This said, she threw the keyhole of the door far and vanished again into the open floor. Icarius' daughter started from her sleep, in joy's fresh humor, her loved breast did steep. When now so clear in that first watch of night, she saw the seen dream vanish from her sight. The worship those seas moist waves did ply, and thought the prince a haughty death should die. There lies a certain island in the sea, twixt rocky Samos, rough Ithaca, that cliffy is itself and nothing great, yet holds convenient havens and two ways let ships in and out, called Asteris, and there the wooers hoped to make their massacre. End of the fourth book. Oh my god. Oh my god. We've read this much. This is how much we're missing. Kill me. Oh my god. It's okay. We'll get through it. Trust. Trust. I'm so tired. It's like 2 in the morning again. I'm never fixing my sleep schedule. Oh my god, this is terrible. Terrible. I'm tired. Okay. I'm tired. You're probably also tired. Unless you're watching this in the day, then you're probably also a little sick of the reading of the Odyssey. So I'll see you. Goodbye, guys.